Hi, hello and welcome back to Bioenergetics. My name is Devraj, and today I want to look at the Reich Homebook, which is a kind of a quite famous and slightly mysterious free publication that you can get online. And essentially it's a very long PDF, about 540 pages, something like this, and it documents a whole heap of stuff about actual Reichian bodywork and breathwork, essentially. If you find it and you print the front page off, it looks like this. It says Reichian Therapy, the Technique for Home Use by Jack Willis. And a lot of people write to me about this book because, you know, they've wanted to get interested in Reich's work, in bioenergetics, in Lowen's work and related schools, and they've come across this book and it's monstrous. You know, it's hugely long. The writing style can be quite tricky to get into, and they kind of reach out to me for some kind of advice. And I'm like, well, I don't know so much about it. So I've been investing a bit more time investigating this lengthy document, and I want to actually make some videos just looking at some of the postures in there and discussing a bit and showing how I think it goes. But I need to explain, first of all, I'm not trained in Reichian breathwork or, you know, Reichian therapy generally. And it's a little bit diverse from bioenergetics, but I think it's really, really good stuff. One of the questions that you always come across when you get into this field, whether it's bioenergetics from Lowen or Reichian breathwork, Reichian therapy, or other schools of bioenergetics, really, is there's very, very little written down about it. You know, it's like in terms of the actual exercises. Alexander Lowen, who was a student of Reich and developed bioenergetics himself, you know, he wrote about 15 books, but only in one of them does it have a lot of postures in there, you know, and that's quite an old book now as well. And also with Wilhelm Reich, I mean, he was a writer, you know, he wrote God knows how many books, maybe 15, 20 books, but as far as I'm aware, he never wrote one book which actually details the postures or details the breathwork techniques that he was pioneering to break through character structure and to open up the breathing and to make people more real, basically. And so, and likewise, a number of other people who trained around Reich, who followed this school, very few of them ever wrote down anything about the actual postures. So, you know, when you come to this situation, 2020, 2021, you're like, whoa, but how, you know, I'm reading all about this great therapy and whatever, but I mean, how do I actually do it? And there are a couple of reasons why so little got written down, and the main one is essentially, which was still going around a lot when I was doing therapy back about 20 years ago, was that, you know, it was considered that most of these exercises were too kind of evocative, some were a bit complicated, and it was important to do them under the guidance of a recognized or trained instructor, you know, a proper Reichian therapist or bioenergetics analysis trained therapist. And, you know, there is validity to this. You know, you cannot necessarily leap in and just start doing exercises, but particularly in today's world where people are mostly looking for the sort of one quick fix thing and, you know, then trying to move on to the next and just want their whole personality to be kind of fixed by one exercise they're going to do for a minute or two. And that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. And I'm not totally better myself, you know, I have the same dopamine kind of behavior. But it's understandable, even this is sort of going back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you know, that people, it was recognized by the therapists, and there were quite a lot of therapists back in those days that were working with this kind of style, that, you know, people couldn't just necessarily jump in and just start doing this. So it was a generally unspoken thing that you didn't really put a lot of exercises out in print, you know, which was the main media format in those days. And then there's probably a slight shadow subsidiary aspect where they may have been concerned that, like, other therapists would learn their work and, you know, start copying them, or people wouldn't need therapists anymore and they might be out of a job because they'd just be doing it themselves. There's probably a little bit of that going on, but I think you know, in the culture of the day, you know, it's pretty valid. And there may even, I don't know the legal situation back in those days, but maybe they could envisage a situation, particularly perhaps in the States, where someone reads their book in 1980 or whatever and has a bad experience from doing one of these exercises, and their dad's a lawyer and the poor therapist writer ends up in court or something like this. I don't quite know, but these are the basic reasons why no one wrote any of this stuff down. And the big negative that came from that, really, when we fast forward to now, February 2021, is there's very little stuff written down and very few therapists practicing this stuff anymore. So there's been a genuine kind of extinction threat on the information. It actually could go out of the public record. A lot of the therapists are quite old, the trainings are kind of staggering off a lot, and there's just very little information out there. And that motivated me with this channel, and which I started about 4 or 5 years ago, to put more information out. And also, in writing my book, I'm writing a trilogy on bioenergetics, or it might even be 4 now, but I mean, basically it's motivated to put some stuff out there, because there really is, it's gone so extreme in the kind of don't tell anybody kind of thing, that we've now got a situation where we could get real information extinction on bioenergetics and Reichian therapy. And I think this chap, Jack Willis, basically perceived the same thing a decade or two before. And so he wrote this immense book, really about 540 pages, and made it freely available, basically. And it is not just a lot of theoretical rambling, there is theoretical stuff in there, but there's a lot of postures and there's a lot of stuff like that. And what is problematic for people when they come to this book is to essentially work out what the hell is going on, because Jack Willis himself, and I don't know the guy at all, but he wanted to put the information out because he could see that it was in a kind of extinction threat, and he wanted to do that. But at the same time, he wanted to try and be able to create a kind of therapeutic process for people to go through doing the book. He probably recognized maybe that it's a lot of often young guys in their 20s who want to do this kind of work, and that's fair play. But at that age, you can be very dopamine driven, even back in the 80s or 90s, and all you want is another hit. You want to get this done, get this done, and get this done. But with these kind of body-based or breath-based approaches, this won't work, So what he did was kind of just write freestyle, just absolute immense amounts of information, which was kind of cluttered and full of a lot of injunctions which get repeated a lot, always too slowly. And he's repeating this like every, third page or something like that for 400 pages. He's trying to, as I see it, he's trying to be the therapist whilst you're reading the book and hold you in a certain kind of process. But of course, it's all being a bit freely created, and the reality is that a lot of people who come to this book do not get very far with it, which is a shame. I think it's very good that it's out there, and it's just a pity that the structure is such, the way it's written is such that most people will give up. And of course, there's a validity in that as well, in that I guess if you're the 1 in 100 who's really like, I'm on it and I really want this, then you will sit there and you will slowly go through those pages, picking it out and going through it and working it out and all this kind of thing. But my intention in making this video is to look at some of the basic posture that is used, and hopefully I'll make some more follow-up videos just looking at different postures from this book, and just hopefully work out how to do it, because I'm also not trained in this stuff. But having worked with body work and with bioenergetics, emotional expression, this kind of thing for many years, I have some background experience. So what I'm going to do is fast forward through a little bit of a book, probably to about page 50 or so, or maybe it's page 100, I'm not sure where we get. There's some daily exercises which you can look through if you download this book. I'm not quite sure how far in that is. But then we get to start, I think it's chapter 5, and we're really working with some great breathwork exercises, essentially. And Jack is giving a lot of information about how to breathe and this kind of thing. And a lot of these Reichian breathwork exercises, or Reichian therapy, maybe I should call it, were done lying down in a certain posture. And let me get into that posture. I've got a yoga mat here. You, of course, don't need to have a yoga mat, but let's just see if you can see me. So lying down on your back, but with your knees up and your feet planted, and not too far away from your ass. I mean, you don't have to be stuck right in your ass, but kind of comfy like that. Maybe your feet are like about a few inches apart. Now, I think the Reichian therapy would have your palms facing down. I personally prefer palms up because I think it's a little bit more open. And also what's characteristic of a lot of therapists from this time working with the body and with energy in the body and this kind of thing is they keep your eyes open, which is a kind of, it brings more intensity and energy, it tends to, if you keep your eyes open. Though in this day and age people complain that, they can feel their body more deeply when their eyes are closed. But nevertheless, working with eyes open is very powerful. And in this posture, basically what you're meant to do is just to simply start to breathe deeply and continuously and and through the mouth. So eyes open, breathing through the mouth in and out and continuously, which means essentially no gap between the in-breath and the out-breath. It's what I would call a charging breath, basically. You're charging the body with energy. You should feel your belly inflate, and then you should feel your chest inflate. Normally the belly will inflate more, that's the experience. You can put hands on the belly or the chest to check that they're inflating. But we're looking for a really deep, continuous, even breath. Let's just look again. And ideally what you can do is to start to do this, allow the charge that develops, which normally means a tingling, which may be more localized to the hands and feet, or it may be more distributed all around your experience of the body. And you build that charge and stay with that breath for like up to an hour. This is the basic practice that he explains. And when you can do that, then you can move into some different exercises. But initially, you're just... It is quite meditative. It's quite meditative. And the idea is you stay feeling your body, breathing deeply, and you can maintain this for up to an hour. An hour is a long time. I would be happy if a client could do it for 15-20 minutes. What tends to happen when we breathe more deeply is that we quickly go out, in the sense that we quickly, we space off, we get into abstract thoughts, or we do something not to stay present. Basically, or we suddenly get the impulse, hey, I don't want to do this right here breathing anymore. I want to get up and have a cup of tea or look on Instagram or whatever. So, but what will happen after about 5-10 minutes is that the mind starts to get entrained to the deep breathing, and that makes it easier. We're kind of entrained to it, and our body's working a bit like a machine with this breathing to create a charge. And often in therapy these days especially, people don't like to talk about a machine, but actually becoming a kind of charging machine for 15-20 minutes is pretty useful, that you can do that you can allow your body and mind to do that. So getting to a point where you can charge your body with energy for 15-20 minutes is quite an achievement. Let's have another look. Because typically what happens is we start to breathe more deeply as we start to feel more accurately. The brain's defenses, called neuroception, they respond to the sensation of inner activity, just as though it was an external trigger, a subliminal external trigger, and they try to take us out, they try to take us away. So we have to stay quite focused. So it is quite an achievement to be able to lie on your back and just breathe deeply for 15 minutes and just stay there, getting into it, rather like a meditation where you're just feeling your body, you're feeling the tingling, you're breathing your way, and you've really done it. And just being able to do that is quite an achievement. And then you can start to refine the process a little bit more. You can look at doing it without making too much sound from the throat. And the technique that Willis gives is that you inflate, you kind of push your belly out, then your chest a little, and this allows air to come in without having to regulate and control too much at the throat. So it's a bit like... So all I'm doing really here is I'm just I'm, pumping my belly out a little bit and then my chest slightly, and allowing air to come in and then reversing that process and having no gap between the in and out breath. So if you want to follow along with this series, or you're just intrigued by Jack Willis's work, then practice doing this for 10 or 15 minutes. You can have a bit of music or a timer or whatever works for you, but try to stay pretty much present in your body for the 10-15 minutes and see if you reach that point where you're entrained to the deep breathing. You're entrained to it and you no longer have to focus quite so deeply on it. Those of you who are familiar with this kind of work will recognize that when we do this with eyes closed and not the knees up but lying down, it's more like a classic kind of rebirthing technique. But here what we're doing is we're charging the body with energy, and then when we've got that, when we understand the technique and we can really do it, when we're really experienced and we can do it for 20 minutes, then we can start to use some body postures or changes in the breath to start to create a more change. But just being able to get to a point where you can deeply breathe for 20 minutes lying down is itself quite an achievement. What else I can mention about this book is that Jack Willis did not train with Reich as far as I'm aware, but he trained with a guy called Francis Rigardi, who's actually better known for his work with Western esoteric schools, Israel Rigardi. And I think Rigardi worked mostly as a psychoanalyst, but when people came to him wanting to do esoteric stuff and this kind of thing, then he said, well, you need to do a lot of Reiki and breath work first so that you're really prepared for it. Your body's the right kind of vessel, as they would have said in alchemy. Okay guys, I hope this has been a useful video for you. Do feel free to give me a bit of feedback and let me know your own impressions of the Reich Homebook. It's a very interesting resource, and I'm hoping to be able to make like weekly or fortnightly videos just looking at some of the postures. Do remember you need to work at this stuff. We live in a culture where no one wants to work anymore. Everyone wants to just get stuff, but the reality is they're always trying to take shortcuts, but they don't get anywhere. They don't get anywhere with the shortcuts. So you've got to kind of come to a place of maturity where, okay, I want to work with this. And, I am the same. I'm always looking for a shortcut, mostly when I work. And when you work with the body and with the breath, there are no shortcuts. You just want to get more and more aware of your body and how to deepen the breath into these body cavities and stay present, really feeling. And that on its own will clear a lot of stuff out. I'm really grateful that I did enough breath work and enough bioenergetics to feel like I can breathe deep. I can breathe deep into my body and I can stay present and feel what's going on with all that energy and intensity that's stirred up. Okay guys, thanks for tuning in. Feel free to like and subscribe and all that stuff. Check out my work, bioenergetics.org.uk, and I'll see you back shortly for some more Reichian therapy. Cheers.